And hello and welcome everyone to the Transform Your Relationship Show. I'm Laura Rubenstein here with the fabulous Dr. Roberta Shaler. Hi, Roberta.
Hi, Laura. What a day. What a day. Here we are in the doldrums. We just finished President's Day and we're sitting thinking, what can we talk about? What's really basic to who we are that we haven't spoken of for a while? So we've come up with a good one today, I think.
We have, and it's that word that is it seems to be trending. It's like authenticity or being authentic in the self-help realm to the point that I wonder if people really think about what is really authenticity, or do they just have this should around it? Like, I gotta be authentic. And then what does that mean? And what do they do? And what are you saying? So there's a lot of pressure around it. There's a lot of trendiness. It's hip to say that, but do we really? We want to explore it and say, is this a concept that we can integrate in our life that we can consciously address?
Or should it take us some time? Is it worth taking some time? Because words that get trendy get meaningless sometimes. We go, oh yeah, of course. And and then we don't really get the impact in our life.
Right.
So thinking about being authentic, authentic means that there's a match, that what you do matches what you say you want to do. That matches and there's congruency. And so we can talk a good game sometime, but sometimes we have to sit down and really do a little self examination. Am I truly being authentic? And one of the places I think that this kind of falls apart sometimes is that we spend more time thinking about other people than we do about ourselves. So we're catching up whether or not somebody else is being authentic, or we have a judgment about somebody else, but we're not spending the time to make sure our own self is clean and clear.
So when you think about it, if you're thinking about somebody else being inauthentic, maybe just a reflection of, well, or an opportunity, say, oh, well, if I think they're inauthentic, is there some place I'm being inauthentic or not in alignment? I love your definition. It's like there's a congruency between what you're thinking and feeling on the inside and what you want and what you're actually expressing on the outside.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's where the authenticity comes. I mean, we can say that we value family, and then do we treat family as though we value them?
Mm,
When there's authenticity, then there's going to be that congruence between our values and our actions. And there are no shoulds in this whole thing, that there's no way you should be except conscious of how you are, right? There's no right or wrong or good or bad. It's a decision that
yeah.
it's wise for you to make, not be doing it by default,
Hmm.
you know, by doing it from old programming or doing it because somebody else wants you to, or, maybe something as simple as this, just sitting having lunch with a bunch of friends that you know pretty well, and somebody starts complaining about somebody, and you go down the rabbit hole with them. Oh, okay. Was that authentic to you? Was that you wanting that, okay, we're all aligned against this idea? What did you want and why were you participating in it? Those are the deeper questions about authenticity. You know, being able to say to somebody what you would say to their face, what you say behind their face.
That's another thing. And I also wonder, sometimes when I've caught myself, I'm justifying my point of view and I'm, trying to get out some tension, but it's not really the truth. The truth is I'm trying to get out some tension, not that they're wrong and I'm right, you know? So there's that whole other layer of,
Yes.
you know, truly being authentic, like being able to stop yourself in the moment and say, whoa, I'm really angry right now. I gotta take a break. See ya.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, you can get on a real rant, can't you? Sometimes, I mean, I know I can in my head, like, oh, well, that's not right, and that's terrible, and who do they think? That whole rant. And if you can stop in mid rant and say, just a minute, what's really going on here? It's not about the other person; it's about me. I had a person ask me the other day in the world of difficult people, and And she said, my mother told me the other day that I don't really love her. I just think I should love her, and I pretend that I love her. And the person's question to me was, is that really her feeling, or is that her way of projecting on me that she doesn't really love me, but she thinks she should love me?
Yeah.
And this is where things get really difficult in the authenticity world when you're dealing with hijackals and difficult people because they're not authentic,
Mm.
right? So they will do anything to win. So it was a big issue for her because either way she lost, right? Either way her mother doesn't love her and she thinks she should but she doesn't, or the opposite, that the mother doesn't think that her daughter loves her and therefore rejects her.
Mm.
So it was a loss for her either way. But where was the authenticity? And when you're dealing with these difficult people that I call hijackals, you're not going to find any because everything is smoke and mirrors.
And it's hard to be authentic and dangerous almost to be authentic with people who are inauthentic and out to win at all costs.
Yes, and never be vulnerable with them. Never, ever,
Ding,
ever
ding,
be
ding, ding, ding.
vulnerable with
Yes.
them. But you won't know that. You won't know that unless you're very, very wise and you've figured all this out and you've had enough experiences. So don't beat yourself up if you do it, but educate yourself.
And make a new decision the next time.
Exactly.
And I know that's what you do in your groups and your programs and your one-on-ones, where you're helping people to recognize that they can take care of themselves and that this authenticity, has to be, I don't know if it's guarded, but there's a difference between being authentic and being vulnerable. And sometimes, when you're vulnerable, you're obviously authentic, but there's an authenticity level that you have to kind of stick to and not go into this realm when you're with people who are not safe.
Yeah. Yeah. So authenticity, can be that I say what I feel and what I think. And you can be unsafe then too because you're not filtering yourself. You don't have the communication skills to do that in a way that's kind and honest at the same time, which is my hallmark for how people do things, right? So you could think, well, I'm just being authentic. I'm saying what I think. I'm saying what I feel. I'm calling the shots as I see them. And you get back to what you were mentioning earlier, Laura, that justification. Like, I have a right. Yeah, yeah, you do. But who do you want to be while you're exercising that right?
Hmm.
Do you want to be Betty Basher? No, I hope not. Right? Do you want the relationship to continue? Do you want the relationship to improve? Do you want to blow the relationship up? I mean, you have to think before you open your mouth.
Yeah. And it's a great place to come from, being kind and honest, especially, and when you're angry and want to lash out, it's a good time to work things out and step away from the situation. Um,
Yeah, I think some of us heard the adage. I certainly wouldn't have heard it from my mother because she didn't believe it. But, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Well, I changed that to say if you can't say something nicely, don't say anything at all.
oh, that's right. Yes.
Right? Because if you can't be kind and honest at the same time, then keep your mouth shut. Unless you're really quite happy to blow it up and suffer the consequences and backtrack and ask for forgiveness or have a feud forever or have somebody have it as ammunition to throw at you in the next time you have a conversation. You we have to really be conscious in this whole communicating business. And it starts with knowing who we are. And that means we spend time by ourselves, which is not always the most popular activity for most people because they're out there, be, do, have, rinse, and repeat.
And afraid to go within sometimes. It's like painful. What am I going to see there? I don't like myself. I don't like how I feel inside. It's very dark in there and it can be scary. We get it. That's why Roberta's here. I'm here. We're here to be like, it's okay. If you need to, if you know you need to do it, which we all do, but it's a really scary place, you can do it in safe ways, in supported ways. get support. I mean, your website for relationshiphelp.com, you offer consultations there, access to information, ideas for going deep, like,
Mhm.
and we've done that on this show. I mean, watch
We sure have.
episodes of this show on our Transform Your Relationships live Facebook page. We got whole things, and we'll nurture you into that. And I think we each have to nurture ourselves. And what you're saying is, when you're saying something nicely, or you're coming from an intention of kindness, and authenticity, because we did a whole show on kindness and grace, and oh, those are great shows. But we're not saying sacrifice your authenticity. We're saying
No.
protect yourself and be authentic, because you can say, one of my feminine power cards says, you can say anything to anyone when it comes from love. Now, that doesn't mean, hey, you da 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 da, yelling, screaming, whatever. And I just mean this from the bottom of my heart. That is not saying something from love, okay? It's got to come across to them as, a loving, you have to think about how it's coming across to get then, basically, to them.
Absolutely. And there's no kind of giving yourself permission to blow things up and then say, oh, well, I'm just having a bad day. We'll all have one of those times when we blurt and we hurt. I mean, sometimes the stress
Yeah.
level is very high and we do that. But hopefully we have the consciousness to say, oh, I'm sorry. That came out badly, or that's not what I intended. I'm just very stressed. And please, everybody, give yourself permission to paint a mistake bright red and talk about it immediately, because that demonstrates that you're aware of what you're doing and lets the other person know.
And that's authenticity.
That's
That's
right.
authenticity. When you catch yourself and you admit it to the other person, it's like, it's so freeing when you can do that,
Yes.
because you're no longer, just like being embarrassed, like, oh, I hope they didn't get hurt by that, or I'm really sorry I did that, but I can't say it because I'm embarrassed about it. I don't want to admit it. I don't want to be guilty, like, go there, but go there.
Yeah.
You can go there.
Absolutely. When I was in the education for a long time, I had some wonderful opportunities to do some very experimental things with kids. And one of the things was I had a class of 10-year-olds that I was just given, I could do whatever I wanted all day with them. And so we did a lot of personal development work. And we used to have this thing that when they said something, they had permission to go, cancel that. They made this big C and then say, I'd prefer to say it this way. And everybody had permission to cancel something, take it back, and reword it so that we built new pathways. And I think that's part of this whole thing is when I can catch myself in the moment saying, no, that's not the way I want to express myself. No, that's not the language I want to use. No, that didn't represent me very well. No, that's not the road I want to go down. Let me restate that. There's a level of emotional maturity there that says, I'm on it. I'm aware. I know who I am and I know who I want to be, and this isn't it, and here's what I do want.
Mhm.
And that level of honesty with yourself leads to that authentic place where you are saying, I'm calibrating all the time if I am actually living from my values and my vision for my life and who I want to be. On the other side, people say to me things like, I had a hijackal mother and I haven't spoken to her for years and now she's dying. What should I do? And my question is always the same. Who are you?
Mm.
And the person will write back and say, what do you mean, who am I? Say, well, who are you? Are you, there's no right or wrong or good or bad answer here. There's no way you're supposed to be. Go from who you are and what you can live without regrets with,
Mm.
right? Like if you can't imagine not seeing your mother on her deathbed and you can honestly understand that she hasn't changed, don't go back with the expectation she's going to welcome you with open arms and apologize for all the horrible things that she did that made you go no contact with her. Because who you are as a person who has enough compassion to say, I will visit, I will say what I want to say. An example from my own life that I often use to those people is I took care of my mother to her death at home. And 3 days before she died, I was holding her hand and I said, Mom, you've never told me that you loved me. And she looked at me and she said, I know. No, I didn't have any expectation that she would tell me, but I wanted to create the opportunity because I had told her. So these are the things that you have to know, that you go and do something because it's who you are, not because you want to get something back as a result of doing it. And so it will always come down to knowing yourself so well, right? And know thyself is one of those platitudes and quotations that people like to put out all the time. But it's like the word authenticity. After a while, you go, oh, yeah.
What does it really mean? And am I being it? And we can convince ourselves we are, but are we? It's like this, it's hard to see ourselves as ourselves, but that's what we want to inspire you to do.
Yeah. When I think of the term authentic, I think real, like we put it in its authentic leather, or that
Mhm.
is now we
Genuine.
genuine, yeah, that okay, it's the real deal. It's been thought through. There's no imitation, there's no pretense, there's no fabrication, there's no confabulation. Authentic is simply real. That doesn't mean raw, it means real. And maybe you got down to the raw place in order to know what's real, but you come from that knowledge of yourself and who you are and who you want to be in the world and how you want to represent yourself. Because no matter what, always believe people's behaviors, not their words.
Hmm.
So when you
Hmm.
really look at someone's behaviors, you'll see their authentic self. That's where that authenticity will show up. And
So let's talk about filtering. So when you get to that raw place, I mean, that's authentic, but who are we showing this to? So there's this authentic, the stuff and what do we filter up, and how do we decide, choose, what do we bring? What is actually authentic to bring up?
okay, there's a whole lot in there. You said let's talk about filtering. So let's start there. I mean, how much do we have to filter? That's a big question that people will ask. Like, why can't you just, when I was young, there was the saying, let it all hang out.
Right.
It was back in the time when T groups were things, sensitivity groups, and you just say whatever you wanted to say and leave it on the table and let other people deal with that. Right. And that was supposed to be enlightened psychology, at the time. We've learned better, but that was, at least it was a time of lack of pretense, which is what the generation before did. They put, you know, whipped cream all over everything. Now, Charles hates it when I say this, but I'll say it anyway. I think it's very important for us to not put whipped cream on manure. That 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 we put niceness, and underneath we're afraid that our real stuff is going to show up. And authenticity is when you're just all fertilizer, right?
Hmm.
That that you're not, when you put whipped cream on, it's like your child's going to the neighbors, and you spray them with whipped cream and you say you be nice and you use your manners and you do all of this. Well, why would you have to do that? If you brought the child up to use their manners and do all that, you no need for the whipped cream. But if you've been letting it all hang out at home and you think that they should use their manners elsewhere, you cover them with whipped cream. Well, the problem is that manure is warm and it melts whipped cream.
It makes a mess, a sticky mess. I
Yeah, and
totally
then
agree.
and then it smells, right? And so this is not good. And you can see probably why Charles doesn't like this metaphor, but it's so real. Like, we just want to be the fertilizer that allows things to grow and everything. No smell, no need for whipped cream, no, nothing. It's been aged. It's been ready to allow things to grow in it. And that may not hold for the whole metaphor, but you get the idea that we want to be authentic. We want to be able to know ourselves so well that we know how we want to come across. We know what we really believe. We know what we really value. We know where our boundaries are. We know how we can count on ourselves to express them in ways that they can be heard rather than reacted against. These are the opportunities that we have when we look at authenticity. And it is a huge, huge, huge study that you have to undertake to say, well, where did I get this value? Did I get it from my parents somewhere? Have I ever looked at it? Do I believe this? Is this true for me now? Do I want it to be true for me now? Or would I like to replace it with something? And, as we spoke about in another show, the brain is much happier to create a new habit than it is to replace an old habit.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not just semantics. To go back and rewire an old habit is more difficult for the brain than to say, no, we're going to do this now. And so that's what we have to do for ourselves, is to spend enough time finding out, how do I really want this? Like, I was just making a graphic before we came on air. And the graphic says, and it'll be up on Facebook as soon as we're done, but it says, if you feel you have to tear yourself down, wear yourself out, or put yourself down for someone else to like you, to approve of you, to love you, or to stay with you, it's time to get help.
Mm.
Because you're not good enough the way you are. Someone needs you to tear yourself down, or wear yourself down, or put yourself down, or they'll do it for you. So you're not allowed to be authentic in that situation. And that's really problematic.
Yeah, you're making yourself into a pretzel, and it's not good for your health. It's not good for your emotional stability and sanity. It's not good for your happiness. It's you taking your own vitality away. It's self-abuse in a sense. If
Well,
you
it's you taking over the abuse.
Mm,
Someone else has abused you and you've taken it over as a lifestyle that you beat yourself up now, even when they're not around.
yeah.
And if you had a hijackal parent, you will internalize that inner critic at a high level, and you will have to get some help to get that little voice out of your head. But it's so important for us to do our own work. And I think we come to that so frequently on Transform Your Relationships, that you're worth it. You deserve your own time. You deserve your own energy. You deserve to come to clarity within yourself. And the only way that you can really do that is to spend time with you.
And you deserve peace, and you deserve happiness, and to feel the joy in your body. And if
Yes.
that's and that it requires being really authentic with yourself.
Yes, and get those feminine power cards out, because that's where you'll be reminded.
Yeah.
Like, go and pull a card like that. Maybe, you don't know what to focus on today. Well, having one of those cards will help you focus and say, okay, I'll think about that today. And don't be afraid to put one back and get another one if it doesn't suit you today. You know, but
It's exactly the way I designed them, actually. I was writing down these nuggets of wisdom when I was going through a process of really figuring out, what is it that I'm feeling? How can I get to this source of joy in my own life, and or work through issues? And so I'd write these nuggets down because I never knew which one would apply in the moment. And then I'd flip through them until I found, oh, yes, the peace in my body came back when I read a certain one. So
yeah.
they're really powerful.
Yeah, so it's not cheating to put one back and get another one. It's just that you got the wrong one. They're not an oracle card.
Right, right. It's
but
tool.
but
It's
do
tool.
you treat yourself well, right? Like, it's the same sort of thing as the mindless answer to, are you authentic? Yes. Well, do you treat yourself well? Yes, of course I treat myself well. But when you really stop and think about it, do you?
Hmm.
Right? Like, I was having a conversation with someone, kind of a perverse conversation yesterday, and they were talking about sweets. And I said, when I was first eliminating sugar from my life, or even way, way before that, when I was trying to be just healthier, then a waiter would say, would you like to order dessert? And I'd say, no, I'm being good to myself today. Thank you. Well, these are the ways that we can work with ourselves to become authentic. If you really believe that you would be better off without the dessert, recognize that what you're doing is being good to yourself because you're in alignment with what you believe. I believe I would be healthier if I didn't have the sugar, right? And so I'm deciding not to have sugar in this moment. And then when you couple that with reminding yourself that I'm being good to myself today, that's positive.
And that's what I call building those mental muscles. When I work with hypnosis clients, it's all about, they say, well, how does hypnosis work? And I say it works in two ways: repetition and shock. Now, we've all experienced hypnosis by shock, or maybe you haven't, but you've seen it, like where somebody gets news like, you are going to die from lung cancer, so you need to stop smoking. Like, if they really get that, that's shocking news. Like, we
Right.
just did a thing of your, boom, or they changed their habit when they said, oh, you're diabetic. A doctor actually does that kind of hypnosis if they say it in the right way that impacts that person. You never know, but you can do this on yourself. And what you just gave was a perfect example. It's like you're reinforcing that positive message, and that's what repetition does. So I recommend that way over shocking news. So
Yes, and another thing about that and why it is even preferable is because you're choosing it. And when you
yes,
choose it, you're exercising your own power. Nobody's forcing you to accept something. And so you're much more likely to hang on to it because you chose it.
yep. Yeah, the force thing doesn't usually work actually. But the repetition and the choice and really convincing yourself, like really getting. And that's where the taking time with yourself to see, what am I doing to myself and what do I
Right.
really want for myself?
Yeah.
Um, by being in the situation, by having this habit, by thinking this way, our minds are so powerful. Let's use them for good,
Yes,
for
for
our good.
good and for us being the best representative of our values that we can.
Amen. And that is how we can be more authentic and feel good about authentic. And sometimes when we're in not a good space and it may not be the time to be around other people or to excuse yourself. And that's the most authentic thing to do. It's like, I'm not in a good place right now. I need to be alone.
Well, I think that's true. And I think if you are with people, like I think about the day my mother died. And I went from the hospital after dealing with her body to a cousin's house. And I just said outrightly, I give myself permission to say or do anything for the next hour. you know, because I had a very difficult relationship with my mother. I was super stressed from taking care of her and having a family of my own and running a business. And I remember clearly saying, anything that I say or do in the next hour, if anybody is offended, I'm sorry. I'm just going to let it all out. And, I didn't do anything outrageous or all, but I did smoke 3 cigarettes that somebody offered me, which is something I never, ever, ever did. But sometimes we need to be in those safe spaces where we can talk to somebody kind of like a, aside from life,
hmm
and like what I call parenthetical to life. Like, okay, we're just going to have this little aside over here. And like, I'm going to spill everything and you're going to forget it all. And then we're going to move on.
And I love the safe space you create with people. So if you don't have a safe space of your own, Dr. Roberta, you create amazingly safe space for people to be in, to express themselves, and to give them that place to go deep and to reflect back from a new point of view. Because if your best thinking got you here and it's not working in your own mind, get it out in front of a professional, not in front of somebody who's going to take advantage of you, or somebody who hurts you, or somebody who's just going to placate you, or just love you because, don't want to fix you. That's not going to help as much as someone who's a safe space with a new perspective that can really help you reflect on your own answers.
Yes, and someone who can help you with the healing process. Many times, I will see people, and thank you for your kind words about me, but many times I will see people putting out a shingle and saying, well, I've had this experience with these horrible people, and so I can help you. Yes, they can help you. They will walk with you through the anger. They will walk with you through the ain't it awful, he done you wrong, all of that kind of thing, but not the healing. They're not trained to help you with the healing. They are trained to help you with the recognition and to support you as you go through the anger and the upset and all of that, perhaps. But there is special training to help you heal. And that can be very, very important distinction when you're looking for someone to work with.
And it's rare to find. I know personally when I was deep into therapy, I went through a lot of therapists, a lot of counselors, and some were more helpful than others. And the ones that were most helpful were the ones that had a different take on traditional therapy, on traditional counseling, but they still were highly trained in therapeutic modalities. So
Right.
It's almost like this advanced level. And then there's probably different people who do good things for different professionals, do different things for different
Sure.
people. So you got to
Yeah.
find the one that's right for you.
Right. And I was sharing with you the other day, Laura, that I changed the heading on my website. And the reason I changed it is because many times people get into a support group and they're just really angry. They're at the anger stage. They just realized what's happened to them and they're angry about that it happened, that they let it happen, that
The
it
hurt.
could happen. They're hurt. They're at their angry stage. And I realized that, yes, I can hear all of that. But what my new header says is Dr. Roberta Shaler for when you're tired of being angry.
Hmm.
When you're ready for that moment to say, I can't live in anger all the time. This is a misuse of my life, misuse of my energy. I'm tired of being angry. I want to move on,
Mm.
right?
That's a very authentic moment too. Speaking of our topic today, it's like,
Yeah,
I
true.
get I'm angry. So it's that recognition. When you recognize what you're really doing, that's true authenticity, what you're really feeling. And then you got to filter what is appropriate to express. And it may be nothing. That might be the most authentic thing, because I will often say, like, I have these feelings, but I don't have the words to express them in a way that really will convey them appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And
And another thing just there, Laura, to add to that, feelings can be fleeting,
hmm
right? You can go through them. And if you blurt while you're running through them, you may have changed your mind 10 minutes later. You may have been away from that, and now you're kind of stuck with that one. And so there is great wisdom in what you're saying, right? To just, okay, maybe I should just live with this bit for a while.
it's amazing when you do sit with a feeling or a set of circumstances and your feelings about it, how things shift, how things come to light of what actually you were doing, the intention behind it, the reasons you said certain things that you felt were authentic. And it's not that it wasn't inauthentic, it was just coming from a place and an intention that really may not be your truth of where you want your life to reside ultimately. It may be a way to get through the other side, but you don't want to be a bulldozer through life, through other people's lives, and say you're authentic. It just isn't. Well, it doesn't usually feel good. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and
Oh,
just an
in the
aside on what you said, like you may have the startling moment when you realize that it is my truth. I am still angry. I am still this. I am still all those things. And yes, I'd like to be in the column of I got through it, but I'm not.
I
And that authenticity of saying, I'm not going to blow up any relationships till I go and get some help to get through this one where I am just so frustrated and angry and upset that I color everything and everyone I see with my upset.
Mhm.
Right?
And if you're angry and not ready to let go of that anger, that's another authentic thing to recognize. Like, I'm angry and I, gosh darn, are going to stay angry until I don't need to be angry anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. And anger works for you many, many times because anger, in my opinion, is not really an emotion. Anger is an arousal in the body coming from another emotion.
Mhm.
So maybe I feel fear, maybe I feel rejection, maybe I feel not good enough. I feel those things, right? But the response is an arousal in the body. And so that's what I mean when I'm saying that when you're tired of being angry, when you're tired of being in that, oh, there it goes again, or there it goes again, or resentment and all of that. When you finally come to that place and say, this is just using up too much energy. It's too time consuming. It's got too much real estate in my head. I need to find an answer to this so that I am not always in anger. Then you're ready to do your work. But while you're head up and in that place of, I'm going to tell it like it is and the world is a terrible place, that's not the time.
Yeah, and it's not wrong to be angry. I mean, like your header is not implying that it's wrong that they're in an angry place. It's like you need to be there until you're ready not to be there, basically.
Exactly.
And that's where you can come in and help. But if you're committed to staying in the angry place for now, then don't waste your money. Or don't,
Talk among yourselves,
yeah, yeah.
Go
Find
and
somebody
join
as a
with other
venting part.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're having a pity party or a venting party or that's a stage. I'm not putting that down. I'm not saying that's wrong.
Yeah.
But if you want to stay there for longer than is healthy, you might want to ask yourself why.
Right. And if you have questions for us, please put them in the comments. Please message us here on Transform Your Relationships Live. We'd love to do a show based upon your questions, and we can keep them anonymous if you'd like. That is not a problem. I want to just wrap up with some summary feminine power cards, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so we talked about the main thing here. You can say anything to anyone when it comes from love. We talked about that today. You can say anything to anyone when it comes from love, and it's about it's similar to your quote about nice, saying things nicely.
As long as it's authentic.
As long as it's authentic. I like that. In fact, this question on the back, which is the way that we have the principle and then we have the practice, and the practice is to contemplate a question here. So how can I say what I'm afraid to say from a completely loving space?
Beautiful.
Is a great way to get to that authentic, what can you say? We also talked about your favorite thing. The way I say it is when someone's actions are not consistent with their words, believe their actions. When someone's actions are not consistent with their words, believe their actions. So, and the other side of that is if you're seeing that in yourself, contemplate, are my actions consistent with what I say I'm committed to?
Yeah, and let's just put this one in there because it's so blatant. If someone says they love you, are they behaving I love you? It's a pretty simple thing to figure out.
It sure is. It may be a hard thing to acknowledge, though.
Very, for many people. But it's simple. Like if you tell me you love me, why don't I feel loved? Well, first of all, maybe I don't know how to accept love, so maybe I've got some work to do. But if you tell me you love me, and I tell you what works for me and you don't do it, you show no interest at all in loving me in a way that I feel loved, is that love? So you got a lot in that very simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that happens on so many levels and so many circumstances. And then we talked to getting to happiness and joy, and you deserve that. And I want to leave people with a gift of this card. It just says, happiness is a state of infinite and enduring gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
So look around your life and note what you love about it. Heighten that feeling of enjoyment and see if you can embrace this life as your dream life from a state of gratitude for all that you have.
Beautiful. They're very wise cards, as you can tell, and I think you'd enjoy having them. So remember, go to femininepowercards.com and get yours. I have mine.
They're here waiting for you.
Yeah.
And at forrelationshiphelp.com is where you can find Dr. Roberta Shaler and all
Yeah.
her wisdom magic.
And just a little invitation to you. Every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Pacific time, I do a live stream on YouTube. And if you go to YouTube, my channel's called, guess what? For Relationship Help. If you go there and subscribe, you will get a reminder That's 6 o'clock on Monday evenings. You can come along, and in the chat, you can put your questions, and I'll answer as many as I can in the time. We're having some great conversations over there. I do a topic each week to start us off, but it's completely open what your questions might be. So if that interests you, go to youtube.com/for relationship help.
Awesome. And we'll put the links in the comments below. We'll be back with another episode of Transform Your Relationships live in a couple weeks. So until then, be authentic.
You do your best.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.